Upon its release in 2008, LEGO City's first Coast Guard line was a welcome new addition to the seemingly endless police, fire, and construction remakes of the time. And while this by no means would be the last of LEGO City Coast Guard, there's something quite special about this first wave of sets. Between the small promos and the giant playsets, there's something for everyone here. And today we'll be exploring all 8 sets from the year in detail as we revisit LEGO City Coast Guard. But this is not to say that 2008 was LEGO's first try at their own Coast Guard. For that, we have to go back 50 years to set 369 Coast Guard Station, a kit that even predates traditional minifigures. Funnily enough, once LEGO realized they had struck gold with their new iconic character designs, they had actually re-released this same set with some color-swapped pieces and, of course, minifigures instead. From then on, Coast Guard sets would continue to occasionally pop up from LEGO's evergreen Town line. I find 1991's Coast Cutter to be especially appealing with its sleek and clean design that still looks perfectly classic LEGO. Some of my earliest LEGO Coast Guard memories come from the theme Rescue, a bold, high-energy sub-theme completely dedicated to water rescue. This is a line of sets I'd love to dedicate a revisiting video to one of these days as well. After Rescue, the next big Coast Guard wave would emerge from World City, the short-lived transition between classic LEGO Town and the LEGO City theme we know and love today. It's a fascinating look back at a very significant year in LEGO's history. And while the resemblance to modern LEGO City is unmistakable, the theme has its own flair that sets it uniquely apart from anything that came before it and anything that came after. Amongst all these offerings were 3 Coast Guard themed sets. The Coast Watch HQ features one of the coolest raised baseplates ever too, an elaborate recoloring of a Belleville Golden Land baseplate. And that'll bring us right up to the release of City Coast Guard in 2008, an era of LEGO I bet a lot of us would like to return to. The sets we'll be looking at today shared shelves with the likes of the first wave of Agents, Indiana Jones, Fantasy Era Castle, Exo-Force Deep Jungle, Mars Mission, and even my favorite Republic gunship playset. Our journey through the world of LEGO City Coast Guard begins with the smallest regularly available set of the wave, and that's Coast Guard Quad Bike. If you're familiar with LEGO City in any way, shape, or form, you're probably quite familiar with this format, as the ATV is something that LEGO has recycled for any number of city sub-themes. There's fire four-wheelers, police four-wheelers, construction four-wheelers. It's just kind of their go-to polybag or $5 set. I think within the context of Coast Guard though, it actually makes a lot more sense here than in some other themes. The flag on the back, though it's not decaled with a sticker, print, or otherwise, is a nice little touch that makes this one feel unique. That, and of course, the orange color scheme that is going to be repeated throughout the theme. In fact, that's the only remotely interesting part here. The orange mudguard is only included in 8 sets altogether, not making it extremely rare, nor is it terribly desirable all on its own either. However, it is worth noting that that particular recolor hasn't been seen since 2010. Of note here though, I think it's worth talking about the minifigures, which are virtually identical throughout the entirety of 2008 Coast Guard. Most of the figures recycle parts that had been introduced in the earlier years of City, but the torso, which does have a special printed front, is unique to this sub-theme. Plenty of zippers, and there is a bit of metallic printing there for the Coast Guard logo. What you see is what you get here. No need to dwell on it too much longer because we have plenty of other exciting sets to look at. And one of those sets is Coast Guard 4WD with Jet Scooter. And I'll tell you right here, this is probably my favorite set of the wave. It feels like the quintessential Coast Guard set, even though it's only coming in at the $10 price mark. And what I love about this one is just how packed with detail it is for such a small set. You've got the 4-wheel drive truck up front, you've got the trailer with the jet scooter on back, and there's just tons of accessories all over this thing. You've got another familiar Coast Guard minifigure here, not too different than the first one we saw. And this set gives you stickers, which of course are very common throughout City, even to today. We'll start by taking a look at the truck here. As to be expected, it's very easy to get on the inside here, where you can seat a single minifigure behind the wheel. It's just one of their standard 4-wide chassis. perfectly appropriate for the city scale. The design is very similar to police cars and fire trucks of the era, and you can see that reflected in the accessories clipped on the sides of the vehicle here, with a walkie-talkie and then a large antenna here. And I love the inclusion of a ton of accessories. I think that's one of the easiest and best things a LEGO set can do. Even though it's stickered, I like the detail of having both the license plate on the front and the back. and the trailer too, consistent throughout each. It's just good attention to detail and really leans into the realism that this theme was going for. The trailer, as to be expected, is pretty simple, but actually thanks to the addition of all these grill plates here, looks quite respectable. You can even rest the whole thing on this Exoforce robot handpiece, so it can be left separate from the vehicle, which I think is great too. You've got all this scuba gear that attaches to that, so you can actually send your Coast Guardian underwater. I really, really like that. And then the jet scooter, surprisingly smooth, especially for a set of this era. You've got an Exoforce arm there, which allows you to even move the controls from side to side, which is really cool. There's room in the back for a life vest, and then you've even got the suggestion of a motor. Really, really great. Love the color blocking on this too, with the white, the clean line of blue, and then the orange on top. Great, great stuff. There are a ton of grill tiles in this set though. You got 4 on the truck here. You've got an additional 6 here, and then 4 more on the jet scooter. It is kind of the perfect small set detail piece. A wonderful classic Lego element. At $10 and 130 pieces, this set is absolutely perfect for its size. I have a lot of fond memories. I think I even brought this along on vacation to entertain me on the car ride to South Dakota once. I remember this set just being such a vivid part of my childhood, and I honestly can't recommend it highly enough. So what happens if you take Coast Guard 4WD and give it 4 times the parts budget? You get this set. Coast Guard Truck and Speedboat is the first of 2 $40 sets introduced in this small sub-theme, and it quite literally is the previous set just jacked up to the next level. And for that, it is really quite funny. And much like in the previous set, you get the truck, the trailer, and the boat. Let's take a look at the truck first. It is worth noting that this set includes 2 minifigures this time around. The truck is so overkill. It reminds me a lot in many ways of the Dino Attack Mutant Lizard Ambush set, though that thing is something else altogether. What is it, 14 studs wide? This goes for a mere 8 studs, but considering the scale of the other vehicles we looked at so far, this one does feel a bit out of place. I'm not even convinced it would fit on the standard road plates that they were doing at the time on the 32x32 base plates, but I suppose it doesn't need to. This is very much an off-road vehicle. Once again, you're seeing plenty of sticker detail, including the license plate on the front and the back of the truck, though unfortunately, the trailer doesn't quite have one this time. There is more than enough room to fit 2 figures inside, and you can access them individually by taking off these 2 standard 4 stud wide canopy pieces. If the last truck was lacking something, it was definitely the bed section of the pickup truck. This has oodles more space where you can see a completely exposed 8x8 grill plate there, and you've got this whole radar station this time that can fit easily in the back. This station has all sorts of fun things. You've got the scuba equipment again. One set is kind of unfortunate. It would have been nice to have seen 2 sets of scuba gear for the 2 minifigures here, but I suppose one has to be at the controls and monitoring the situation from above. And there's plenty of room in this truck bed to put anything else you want, or anyone else that you want. Someone that you've rescued, perhaps, to bring them back to the HQ. It is worth noting that these orange tailgate pieces are an exclusive recolor for this set. The truck does suffer from looking like it doesn't know exactly what to do with its massive size, but there's some good attempts at detailing. I like these little engine bits here, and you've got the singular smokestack on the side. At the end of the day, it is probably way too big. That doesn't mean it's not a lot of fun. Moving on over to the trailer, we'll take the boat off here for a second. You've got some interesting parts at play here, including these big white Technic spoilers, not a very common element. And then you've even got some storage at the base of the trailer. This one is stickered, but at least I didn't put anything inside. I don't think there is anything you can put inside. This set is nice in that you can actually reel the boat back onto and off of the trailer. Some rope is provided. The boat, I imagine, can float. It's made from a big specialized raft element here, and this particular raft element in orange would go on to be used in other City Coast Guard sets. The chain detailing here is really nice. I really love the motor detailing in the back. You've got 2 big boat motors that are actually connected by a 1x5 plate there so that they move in tandem, which I think is a really brilliant technique, super simple. And then you've got this antenna setup as well as 2 life preservers on the side. The hinged little compartment in the front suggests that there might be something hidden beneath here, but unfortunately there is not. I suppose you could store the scuba gear here, but otherwise the set really doesn't give you a suggestion of what you should be putting in this small compartment. There's room for just about 1 minifigure on this vessel, this very large vessel, to just stand barely between the motors here and the windscreen. It's not the perfect use of space, but I think it looks pretty good. I especially love how it looks from the rear. Great stuff. And of course, that can just be set into place, and we should be able to just release it into the water like that, which is pretty cool. And then you can, of course, reel it back up onto the trailer just like that, hitch it up, and you're good to go. I've probably made it pretty clear at this point. While I respect the size, I still think the smaller 4WD and Jet Scooter is just a better, more well-rounded set. It looks cleaner, and I think it makes a better use of its pieces than this one does. That said though, if this floats, that's definitely a big plus for this one. Judging by how worn the stickers are here, I'm guessing they've been submerged in water a few times, one way or another. And that'll bring us neatly on into our second $40 set from the sub-theme, which is Coast Guard Helicopter and Life Raft. You can't have a line of Coast Guard sets without a helicopter. This one is pretty iconic, I feel, the 2008 Coast Guard. And I think it represents far better value for money compared to the last set. This is our first set to finally include a civilian in danger. You've got this little sailor mechanic guy who has found his way into the Life Raft, taking refuge from a classic Lego shark, which is also included in the set. The Life Raft here is quite fantastic. It uses these big Jedi Starfighter wing pieces in orange, an exclusive recolor to the set, mind you, and a ton of stickers to create a very spacious and very believable Life Raft. All of these can fold down to reveal the rather lackluster interior, but I can't imagine there's a lot going on the interior of these things in real life either. There's a single bucket here for a life preserver, and then probably room for just a handful of minifigures to sit down inside and await their rescue. The biggest problem I had with this set, and maybe this is just user error or a construction failure on my part, these smaller segments sometimes can fold in past the rim if you push too hard. Actually, usually don't have to push too hard at all for that to happen. I wish they would catch a little bit better on that center bit so that they don't get stuck underneath. But otherwise, actually a really great piece of 2008 Lego engineering. At the time, this certainly had to be Lego City's largest helicopter. It's quite a thing to behold. And you can tell it's big because it uses the rearmost fuselage section of a jet plane that they had done for their airport sub-theme. Again, in an exclusive recolor to match the color scheme of Coast Guard. Another unique innovation for the time would be the 6 rotor blades as opposed to the usual 4 you'd see on choppers at the time. I don't know why Lego chose to go that route, but I do rather like the look of it. Up front, it's really easy to get access to the spacious cockpit here where you can fit both the pilot and the co-pilot side by side. And there's a stickered control panel and a single lever for them to control the vehicle with. And then, as suggested once again by the stickers in the set, you can open and close these side panels here. And there's a bit of a medical bay in the back with room for a stretcher for the patient. The most interesting part about this set, though, is going to be the wind-up motor. This was a piece, at least back in 2008, that absolutely blew my mind. This singular element has been included in 5 other sets. But the magic of it is, upon pressing this button, it's got a similar styling to the power functions of the time. It actually retracts the rope. How cool is that? Now, unfortunately, despite what the set might have you believe, it certainly does not have the strength to pull up this massive life raft. At least not all the way, without a little bit of help. But it can pull up minifigures, which is more the intention for one of the Coast Guardians to lower himself down and bring up the civilian with him to the safety of the helicopter. Regardless, it's a really cool feature, and I can't believe how reliably it works. I know it's just a pullback motor, but I thought it would be broken by now. I mean, it's almost 20 years old, for crying out loud. Beyond that, I think there's just a good amount of detail in this set, and the clean color blocking always does it for me with that orange belly, followed by the white body, and then just a hint of blue at the top. Not a bad look at all. As I was preparing for this video, it was impossible to ignore that LEGO had released 2 brand new Coast Guard sets for LEGO City 2026. And the similarities here are uncanny. So I thought it'd be well worth picking up the new sets to compare to the 2008 ones. This one's called simply Coast Guard Helicopter. Don't worry, it's got the life raft too. It goes as far as to use that same Jedi fighter wing, though this time recolored in yellow. Makes it stand out from the helicopter a bit. I mean, the biggest change here, of course, is the switch from orange to reddish orange, which is the latest, greatest thing. And I do really like it. You've got the highlighter yellow throughout too, which works surprisingly well with the reddish orange. The similarities don't just end with helicopters and life rafts though. A shark is our main villain here. And you've also got the same winch, though this doesn't have the wind-up function like the old one. The rope string material here is so thick, it doesn't actually wind up all that nicely. It kind of unravels at the end, so that's a bit of a downer. But there's a lot of other great things going on here. Chief amongst them being the fact that there are no stickers in the new helicopter, which is fantastic. Everything you see here is prints, including these big 2x6 Coast Guard panels on the side. And that's probably where my favorite part of the helicopter here comes in. You actually slide these doors back. And I need to make it abundantly clear, I paid my own money for these. LEGO didn't sponsor this or anything. I'm a grown man buying LEGO City sets all by himself because I wanted to experience some whimsy, I guess. And these sliding doors, they provide the whimsy. I think that's much better and probably much more realistic. Unfortunately, there's not a whole lot going on the interior bit here in the back at all, but there's lots of room to house minifigures. You actually can access the interior through the back too, and you've got one of those brand new life preserver pieces, dual molded with a handle. This piece first showed up in the Animal CMF from earlier this year. I go back and forth on whether or not I like the nose of the helicopter here. It's small car hood piece, and they've used the wheel wells to attach some lights. It just looks a little bit beaky from the profile. I'm sure there was probably a better element to choose there, but the designer might have been limited in what was available in reddish orange, though I'd be very surprised if this was not a exclusive recolor for this set. But that's the only thing I can really fault about this, besides I wish this was string. Oh, I don't know. Do I wish this was string? Because then you'd have to tie it, which also sucks. Maybe you can't win with that one. But lots of great stuff going on here, especially love the new color scheme. And like I mentioned, there is one other Coast Guard set released in 2026 that we'll be comparing to one of the larger sets here in just a second. Before we get to the 2 largest sets of the theme, I just want to quickly point out the small and promotional items that would have been released alongside all the playsets. The first of which is the Coast Guard kayak. I believe this was actually a small boxed set, though likely one that you wouldn't be able to buy directly from lego.com. This would just be an impulse buy at stores. It includes, as the name suggests, a small kayak, which is a very respectable little build. You've got a single Coast Guardian there with his life vest and oar, and then you've even managed to get a small side build in this tiny little set, and that's just a flagged buoy here, and we'll see similar designs to this in the largest 2 sets of the wave. Then we've got the Coast Guard bike. This was a UK newspaper exclusive of some sort, so definitely a very limited release. I've just reconstructed mine from parts elsewhere in my collection because there's nothing exclusive here. The bike in particular I pulled from Crystal Sweeper, a Power Miner set, and this is definitely the smallest and easiest build of the polybags. That's all there is to it, but it's a great reuse of the orange motorbike part. Fits the color scheme perfectly. The most elaborate of the small impulse buy polybag sets is this one. This is Coast Guard Boat. It probably didn't actually have a real name. This would have been a giveaway with a Polish magazine, so very limited availability. Probably difficult to find one of these sealed, certainly in countries outside Poland at least. But it's got quite a bit of pieces that go into it. It seems to differ substantially from the other builds in its color scheme, with a dark gray belly of the boat and then a lot more use of black pieces. Who knows why that came to be in particular, but I still think the design of it is quite nice, and you've got the little dual motors in the back, which is pretty fancy for a watercraft of this size. At the complete opposite end of the size spectrum is Coast Guard Patrol Boat and Tower. At $60 and 444 pieces, this was the most expensive set released for the Coast Guard theme in 2008. And let's face it, it's not too hard to see why. This set is massive. There's a lot to talk about here, so let's break it down. First of all, we've got 4 minifigures, which is nothing too crazy. 3 of your very familiar Coast Guardians, and another civilian with a stickered surfboard, interestingly enough stickered in the same color palette as the rest of the Coast Guard. Unfortunately, even though he bears the colors of the Coast Guardians, he does not practice what they preach, for he is surfing in shark-infested waters, so we once again get one of those classic Lego sharks to chase him around. And it's up to the Coast Guardians to prevent him from being eaten alive. And boy, do they have the resources to do that. If this giant floating vessel doesn't scare the shark off, I don't know what will. This is definitely their command ship of sorts, and it is indeed built upon one of those single-piece floating hulls, and I believe there's an attachment even for a motor, which is not included in this set, unfortunately. I'm guessing by 2008 they had done away with producing those. Up front, you've got the anchor, super fun, just a classic Lego hook there, attached to a chain, but it definitely gets the point across. There's some nice detailing all throughout this, a lot of these nozzle pieces on the front and back. You've got some fire extinguishers on the front, of course the Coast Guard emblem, some unfortunate sticker detailing on the side of the boat, sticker detailing that is really hard to place, perhaps impossible given the actual dimensions of the boat, so it is very much subject to some peeling over time. Definitely wish they'd print stuff like that. But as we work our way to the back, we'll see a ton of fun details. You've got a crane here, more stickers of course, and that's meant to drop this little orange raft into the water to go rescue our guy from the sharks. Again, you've got some more unfortunate sticker placement with the sticker over the rounded surface, and it looks like it's peeling. And I'm sure exposure to water, where the set is very much intended to be played with, it would not help that problem. You've got plenty of great accessories here though, with more life preservers on the side, more scuba equipment, 2 life jackets, and then we make our way to where the real action is happening in the center of the ship. This top bit can be pulled off. You've got what appears to be a hose on the top, so this could also act as a fire support vessel, which I think is a really nice touch. This bit hinges up to give you even better access to the bridge. There's plenty of open space here, and then just some simple printed control panels. Thankfully, for once, not stickered. Gotta love that. There's plenty of stickers in this set. And once this canopy bit is all removed, you get access to the medical bay that's built into the ship. Really love this stretcher setup. This is something that became less and less common as time went on, but you've got the actual wheels attached to the stretcher, something that they really weren't doing often enough at that time. Anytime you have a stretcher, it should have the wheel attachment. The helicopter, unfortunately, did not have the wheels, even though it had the main stretcher. And then you get this rubber section that allows it to even be lifted by the crane off the boat and onto land, which I think is really nice. Beyond that, this section is lacking a bit of detail. You do have this supplemental oxygen or any other medical gas that you decide on the side. And then there's basically some sort of tracks to help roll the stretcher closer to the crane. It's crazy to think though, that's really only half the set, because you've got the Coast Guard lighthouse over here. And it wasn't enough to just do the tower. They actually went ahead and did this quite substantial dock. It's 32 studs long. Lots more of these nozzle pieces, which I think is a really nice touch. I wish it would have given us an extra chain to help rope it up. I guess you could use the anchor, but it doesn't quite feel right. Got this nice little light. Very interesting cargo pallet here with some octane fuel containers and then some regular crates, which conveniently have cargo stickered on the side of them. And then I do like this little signposting here about the sharks, and then you've got an extra life preserver. From there, you can work your way back to the stairs that bring you up to the actual island itself. There are some really interesting accessories here, a megaphone and a chainsaw, but the piece I really want to highlight is this island. Unless you're maybe a hardcore Bionicle fan, you might not recognize this piece. This is indeed a Bionicle element. The only other place this was ever found outside of this set here was in some system Bionicle sets. And that's why it's got a bit more of a fantasy flair to it with the steps carved into the side. And you'll even see some orangish red paint strokes here meant to depict lava in Bionicle. Hopefully they have not built the Coast Guard Tower atop a volcano, but you never know. These pieces are well and truly bizarre. The only real Lego connection these have on them are some pinholes where you can place these inverted 2x2 plates, and then you can fit a 10x10 plate or series of plates in here. But yeah, it's a fascinating piece to look at up close. It is beautiful in its own way, especially with the strange use of the dual or triple injection molding to accomplish these really fascinating textures. I know I said paint earlier, but it is indeed plastic colorations here. Fascinating stuff. And for some reason, Lego thought like, hey, this will be perfect for our Coast Guard Tower too. And honestly, kind of love it. So once again, we get a really nice clean look with that wonderful Coast Guard palette. These orange rounded pieces are exclusive to the 2008 sub-theme included in this set and the one we're gonna take a look at next. Then we get some nice use of good old flexible blue hoses here to create the railing here attached by Exoforce robot arms. And it creates a really great lookout point. It's quite tall. On the inside, you've got plenty of accessories on the bottom, including flippers, hatchet, binoculars, buzzsaw, and a walkie-talkie. And this section can be removed so you can pull this out for the boat or wherever else you need it. Above that, we have a proper hospital room. Not a whole lot of detail in there, but it gets the idea across. And then up on top, of course, is the watchtower, the control room. You've got a little stickered element that shows the forecast and the weather in the area, and then a clock, as well as some other communications devices. Yeah, this set is awesome. There's so much going on, so much to do, so many stories to play out, so much fun to be had. Love that the boat floats. Love that we're seeing some really weird pieces, and the size of it is just mind-boggling. This is 444 pieces, mind you. It's not a lot of pieces, and that's just because all the pieces are huge. I thought it also might be fun to compare this set to the other brand new Coast Guard set that was released this year, which is another giant boat. The new boat, unfortunately, doesn't include a nice tower on the side, so I'm just gonna axe this for the time being, and we can look at the two ships side by side. I think the first thing that should be pretty obvious here is the size difference. And not so much the length, but the width of these vessels. I've never seen anything quite like the new one, which, let's count it. 4, 8, 16, 20 studs wide compared to the old one's 12, so almost double the size, which is pretty crazy. I believe they are nearly the exact same length, but the biggest advantage of that incredible width is the fact that you can actually have walkways on either side of the vessel. The new ship is really cool. It once again is making use of the reddish orange instead of orange, which is it's just great to see that color again and again. I think it looks really great. It was one of those colors that I did not realize I needed until I saw it for the first time in that Friends Mansion set a few years ago. There's some fun similarities between the boats here, like the raft that you can launch off the back, but rather than a crane, you literally do just launch it off the back here, just like that, which I think actually is a lot less frustrating and much more fun. That was a good call on Lego's part to opt for this strategy for getting the boat in the water. You're seeing some of those new life preservers here. Again, there's 2 in this set. You've got a helicopter on the front, which seems to be a totally over-engineered build for what it is, but I do really like it. It's sturdy. The blades spin well. There's plenty of room in the cockpit, though. It is unfortunate that the pilot can't actually reach the controls. But it's always great to get the vehicles within the larger vehicle. That's like great set design 101. And the fact that you get 2, both an air and water-based craft, awesome. So I love the fact that you can actually take minifigures from the back to the front of the vessel. You, of course, really can't reasonably get minifigures out front here on the old one just because it's too narrow. And there's still plenty of room in the middle to build out some infrastructure on the boat itself. Let's take a look at the top first. You can take this off. You've got all sorts of radar, and I really love the control panel that you're seeing here. I'm built on the sand green, interesting color choice, but I like it a lot. And still plenty of room to place other minifigures here on the bridge. And out front here, you've got these lights really great design. Using that new chain piece that was introduced with the Jaws set, or maybe that's probably a Dots piece to be totally honest with you. Just lovely detail throughout this. And of course, there's another layer below this. And while I wasn't too impressed with the amount of interior detail on the old ship, this definitely brings it to the next level because we've got the med bay and then also sleeping quarters for the crew. And all of this is nicely sealed up with this watertight hatch here, which once again looks really great. The newer LEGO City sets, and this is true of pretty much all LEGO sets these days in general, does not make nearly as efficient use of its parts, but they do give us beautiful sets, there's no denying that. And there's still plenty of stickers throughout this, though we're seeing a lot of the same printed pieces reappear from the helicopter, which is great. Like the Coast Guard panels, as well as this is printed, and then the 2x2 tiles on the side. But yeah, kind of fun to see how this sub-theme has evolved and how LEGO City as a whole has evolved over the years. They have the same DNA, yeah, for sure, but there's certainly been a lot of improvements in the color palette, the parts selection, and then just the tech to make bigger, bulkier boats like this that also float. I'm glad they're still doing floating boats. I had so much fun taking these out to either the pool or just playing with them in the bathtub. I think that's a really, really great thing. Yes, it grossly inflates the cost. I believe this is $100 set. Adjusted for inflation, what, you know, maybe the Coast Guard boat and the tower was 80, 90, certainly not $100. But I do think this is the superior boat. But would you want to sacrifice the entire tower just to have a better boat? That's where things get a little bit wishy-washy. The last set that we're going to be looking at today is really cool, really special. This is the Coast Guard platform, and it seems to be a repurposed oil rig now designed to carry out Coast Guard operations. It's a really fun concept, and it's executed really, really well. So this was very much a limited edition sort of release. This set is extremely difficult to find. I had been passing through Rochester, Minnesota on the way to my parents', and I saw this at their local bricks and minifig store, and I did not purchase this set. Thankfully, my good friend Ramsey was passing through the store, asked if we needed anything, and I'm like, Ramsey, if they got this really ridiculous, bonkers oil platform set, could you please get it for me? And he did. He brought it back to town with him, and that's how I came across this. So huge thank you to Ramsey for making this happen. And ultimately, it was acquiring this set that convinced me that I definitely had to do the revisiting video for this theme, because if I got this one, I could definitely get my hands on the other sets as well. And this thing is insane. We're gonna go on Bricklink right now, and the numbers aren't gonna be pretty. I believe last I checked, there was one of these available in the US. There are 9 for sale on Bricklink in the world, one of which is in the US. It is claiming to be new incomplete, which is never a good sign. If you see this thing and you even remotely want it, you should probably pick it up right then and there. So yeah, let's take a look at what we got here. We've got 4 minifigures, 3 of our Coast Guardians, and then 1 shipwrecked sailor desperately in need of rescue. And once again, the Coast Guard is more than ready to take on that challenge. I guess we can start at the base of the rig here. You've got all sorts of little details hidden around here, plenty of life preservers. You've got this chained buoy, which I just really like. It's just a nice touch. This might be the set with the most of these 2x2 column pieces in dark gray. I'd be surprised if there was one that had more. And then to give you access from the water up onto the platform itself, you've got this elevator of sorts. So you'd climb up the ladder here, and then this can actually raise up. And because of the weight distribution, there's actually enough friction for this to hold in place, which is pretty awesome. Crazy how that works. Who knows if that was intentional or not, but it sure does work. And because adding minifigures here would only push it further this way, I think it would only hold better if you had more weight on it. Great stuff. Things get a little sketchy when you get up here because you'll notice that there's a lot of holes in the platform, and that's because the platform is constructed across these huge 31 by 13 Technic girders. These were originally developed for that heavy duty loader set that I was talking about, where they were produced in light gray. And the other set that I hope a few of you will recognize these from is, of course, Exoforce's Sentai Fortress. So yes, they were repurposed here in orange to make out the base of this platform. And what I love most about these is, well, first of all, the color is perfect, but you get this really interesting tapering shape. It's awesome. I love the pieces, don't get me wrong, but they're actually quite crappy. It's made of a cheap plastic that scratches and bends really easy. To our advantage, that means it was probably cheap for LEGO to produce, and it kept the price of this set down. And the price of the set is actually really interesting because it's $10 cheaper than the Coast Guard boat and tower. And I believe it actually has a handful more parts than that other set, even though it's cheaper. Go figure. Weirdly enough, while we're talking about rare parts that were included in Exoforce sets, these Technic bricks in orange only come in one other set, and that's going to be the mobile defense tank. Can't believe they haven't re-released that yet. It's such a common part, but just not a common recolor. Orange, especially now with the release of reddish orange, is just not that common of a color. It never has been, but now LEGO has even less of a reason to produce it because it's not going to be the main color for Coast Guard anymore when you can use the more interesting, latest, greatest reddish orange instead. Interesting times. But anyway, plenty of detail up here. Of course, we've got extra vehicles, one of them being a helicopter, and this one looks like it's capable of landing on the water, which is pretty cool. You can indeed attach a stretcher to the back, which is a nice touch. Plenty of room for a single pilot there, and that can land out here. And if you're wondering how you would get minifigures to and from, there is this little, I don't even know what you would call it, a bit of a train that can slide along between the girders to connect one end to the other. You got some lights over here on the side, plenty of just little details. I love just how they filled every nook and cranny of this with even just small things. It adds so much, especially when they're fun accessories, you know, like the life preservers and stuff. It just makes it a lot more fun to play with. You've got a crane here for getting the raft on the top of the platform here into the water. It's another one of those orange rafts that we saw on the set before. There's plenty more accessories out here. We've got a chainsaw, a little rack to house all the scuba gear that you find on one of the Coast Guardians. I've got his hat there now that you could swap out, and then you've also got a life jacket. And that's not it though. You get to the other tower here, and there's interior on the inside. We talked about these orange panels. This is the only other set they come in besides the Coast Guard tower and boat. Really love this door element though. It really has virtually no friction on the joint, so it does tend to slide open. And I imagine on the stormy seas where you find this thing, that door would be slamming open and closed all the time. So on the bottom, once again, you get a bit of a waiting room on the side and then another hospital bed. That way you can give your patient emergency first aid while you wait for the helicopter, which then can take them to land. And up on top, we've got our watchtower again, where someone is monitoring all sorts of instruments. We've got two of the printed displays and then the classic LEGO City computer, which I do really like. Yeah, a lot of similarities between this tower and the previous one, but I think this is very much a case of don't fix what ain't broken. And this has its own unique spin on things too. The interiors are wider too, which is really nice just because there's so much more space on this platform compared to that tiny little Bionicle island. It is worth noting that I am missing just a handful of stickers for this set, mostly on the helicopter, just because they're so hard to find. Even so, I feel like the most important ones are here and you get a pretty good idea of what this set is all about. It's really, really cool, really, really fun, and once again, just bonkers massive, which just adds to the fun factor, the playability, and the experience. Great LEGO set. So with that, our journey through LEGO City Coast Guard 2008 comes to a close. What a fascinating lineup of sets. And honestly, some of City's most solid and consistent entries, especially for these early years of the theme. And it's kind of interesting to see how much LEGO City has changed, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, as the theme focuses a lot more on hyper detailing things. But honestly, a lot of these have aged tremendously well. Though as we discussed before, this was not LEGO's first foray into the world of Coast Guard, I feel like we still saw plenty of unique concepts developed here, especially when it comes to like the rig you see here. Many of the play features, the vehicles, the color scheme would be copied in subsequent years, but for some reason this one stands out to me as the definitive year for LEGO City Coast Guard. There's a lot of simple joy in these sets, and I mean it is certainly helped by the fact that I grew up with them, but hopefully I've convinced you of their merits as well. If you're looking for more LEGO City deep dives like this, I would highly recommend JT Sandman's look at the police sets released around this time. That was another iconic LEGO City childhood sub-theme for me. But let me know if there are any other city sub-themes that you would like me to explore in deeper detail too. It's definitely a theme I always love going back to. One that I almost certainly will do at some point is the classic farm sets. Those are some of my favorites. But as always, thank you so much for watching this video and sticking it out here till the end. I appreciate you, and I hope you have yourself a fantastic life.